Hey crafty cuties, welcome back to my channel. This week I am going to make another amigurumi, surprise surprise, and I found inspiration this week from a drawing by the artist Nathan Yaffe of the Drawfee channel on YouTube. I'll put a picture right here. He made this chubby dragon on a stream that he did, and I just thought it was super cute, so I wanted to try to make it amigurumi style. I think it shouldn't be too bad because it's mostly round shapes. The head comes to a bit of a point, which might be strange, but I'll figure it out. So I'm thinking I'm gonna make him green, and like his scales on his belly, I was gonna do this yellow, and for any details, I would do this darker green. Okay, so I spent a pretty long time making his little body. As you can see, I tried to incorporate the head as one shape. Overall, I think it looks pretty good for what I'm going for. Even if it's not perfect, I think it's a pretty good base. I guess maybe next I'll try the tail though, because I think that'll be relatively easy in comparison. I'll probably just do like a cone that I try to sew down onto itself so that it stays. I have added the tail and I did one arm. I think it looks fine, like from this side. The side of this noggin looks good, and this side definitely looks a bit chunky and lumpy. I tried to give it like what's it called, an elbow that went back further, and I think like what I was trying to do worked. I do think that it's a bit bulbous maybe, and hopefully that when I add the back leg it doesn't look as bad, because when I have it sitting down, when he sits down, and the reason I had this one be longer is because it's kind of extending, so he can kind of rest on his tail, and I think like it does kind of what I want it to. I had to stitch it down in a very specific way. You can see in the description below that half of it is slip stitches and the other half is half double crochets, and that's so one side is shorter and the other side's taller, so that it can be built up over here and then lower over here. So this half of it is kind of folded in on itself, and I didn't actually stitch it down at like the last row. I stitched it down where I wanted it to stay. So if you follow this pattern, keep that in mind, that I am stitching it in a different way. When I do the other arm, I'll show you what I'm talking about. And this arm is a bit chunky, but I think I'm going to try to make the back leg even thicker, just not have that kind of bend in it, because the back leg doesn't have as much of a bend in it. I'm going to try to show you guys how I attach the leg. I have now made the other leg. As you can see here, for this one, I did do the half double crochets on the opposite side that I did the other one. I don't know if it really matters because it should be pretty symmetrical. I just did it in case it had any effect. Actually, I guess it probably would have an effect, because otherwise it would go this way, which is the wrong way. So good for me thinking ahead. I think for this thing, this little dragon guy, it'll be easier to sew the top on first, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, one thing I just noticed before I started is this is not really where I want it to be. I would rather start with this first, because I know I want these stitches to be here, and I'm pretty sure I want these stitches to be down in a way that'll be hard to guess from the start. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run this through these loops until I get where I want, which I think is this stitch. What I'm going to do is I can see that this starting strand is about right here. I'm just going to go into these stitches like this, and these will kind of blend in. I would much rather start the stitching from here, and now I can, as if my tail was here. It's 3 rows away from the eye and about 3 down on the other side, but since it's a spiral, I don't typically trust that, and I'll just try to line it up visually as best I can. Okay, I'm redoing my method. I'm taking the needle, putting it in the top corner of mine, which for me is where the half double crochets end, and I go into a slip stitch, if you can see the shift in height there, and I'm gonna put that where I want it. Now I have this sewed down, and as you can see, this leg, well, let me zoom out a bit, which means changing my angle so you can see it a bit better. You can see that this is not necessarily how you want the leg to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stuff it a tiny bit, because it will become hard to stuff after a little bit. You kind of just want to make sure you're filling the top of the foot for sure, and then you just have enough in there for it to move around once you finish sewing it off. That's how I kind of do my faces and stuff too. Like once the hole is getting really small where it's hard to put in the filling, I will stuff the body like super tight, so that way once it's all closed up, I can kind of squish and move around the polyfill that's already on the inside. So now that he's got a little stuffed arm, I'm going to try to place it down how I want it to be. So I'm basically folding this side in as if it's like a piece of paper that I'm folding in half, and visually trying to match it up with what I have on the other side. So now it's pretty good in place. I'm not gonna pull on it to prove it, but it's gonna stay there. And I'm going to start going this way. It's a bit in shadow, but you can maybe see the tops of my crochets are back here. But what I'm actually gonna sew down is the stitches that press right up against it. And that's how I'm going to make it kind of get to be the shape that I am actually going for. And now I'm back pretty much where I started, and I just always like to make sure and go through the first loops that I did, or the first stitches that I did. I always like to make sure to just double connect them, because it's a pretty important point. You don't want to risk having it not connected. And then if your stitches don't look like they connect super well, like if there's a clear seam between places, I like to go through and just run a pretty straight up and down bar that kind of looks like this, pull it tight, and that helps hide that seam. But there you have it. His legs look pretty even to me, and if they don't, they're filled loosely enough to where I can kind of shape them however I want. So now I have attached one of the rear legs. I haven't actually made the other one yet. As you can see, it is super chunky as well. I honestly think he's a bit too chunky, maybe. Like, I know he's a very chubby little dragon that it's based off of. Right now he kind of looks like a fat alligator. I think I don't really know how I'm gonna make the wings, but I think that'll definitely help him look more dragony as well. I kind of have an idea for how I want to do the underbelly scales, but right now I'm just gonna do the other leg and sew it on, and I'll show you guys what it looks like before it's sewed on too, just so you get an idea. I did do the thing again like I did with the front leg, where I kind of pressed half of it down and sewed it on to make it look like how I want it to. So here's how the back leg looks before I stitch it on. This is the way it's gonna face. This doesn't have any stuffing in it because I stuff it after I attach it, so I'm going to attach it. Okay, so I've made these little wings. They're very tiny, but that's kind of how they were. I think I'm going to be using this color for the little inside skin of the wings. I think what I'm gonna try to do is make little triangles basically, and then just stitch them in place. I'm not sure how it'll go. It'll be tedious, and it seems like it would be unnecessary, but if that's the only way I can think of doing it, then I guess it's not unnecessary. So I'm gonna make little triangles for each, and they'll go in the middle. So after some trial and error, I managed to figure out some shapes that fit inside these wings pretty well. I did have to stitch them all together individually, which takes a while. I think these wings are gonna look really cute on the little dragon. He still needs his horns and his belly scales and little green spots that I'm gonna like embroider onto him. But I think I'm gonna call it here for the night because it's really late. I think I started working on this dragon at like 4, and now it is 2 a.m. So definitely time kind of got away from me. Okay, so it is a new day. Like I said in the last clip, it got really late last night, so I've been working on this a little bit today. I worked on it a bit earlier, and then I had to do some homework, so now I think I'm going to try to continue working on him. I finished up the wings last night, and I stitched them on. I don't think I showed you them stitched on though. They're not very sturdy, they don't stick up too much, but I think that's okay. They are a bit close to his head for them to be that floppy, but I tried to place them where they look like in the drawing. Like, they looked pretty high up, like right by where his shoulder would be, which I guess is how dragon anatomy works. If there's any rhyme or reason or consistency in dragon anatomy, I'm pretty sure the wings come from like the shoulders. Is that how they work? Well, birds don't have arms. There's really not much of a frame of reference. I've also made all the other little pieces. This is his stomach scales. Every 4th row, I think, I did a front loops only stitch, so it kind of made a bumpy pattern. It's not super noticeable on camera. I think you can definitely tell it in real life. you can see it kind of goes on him like this. And once I stitch that down, it's gonna look a lot better than it does right now, or just by holding on to it. I also might stretch it out a bit. I think I should have made it one row longer at the top to get all the way to the tip of his nose, but I unfortunately didn't realize that until I was too late to want to turn back. So if you guys follow this pattern, maybe add just another row right at the very top. That's only like 2 stitches, because I think that's what my skinniest row on the top is. I also have here this spine for him. It's a set of spines. The way you do this, they get really twisted, but you just straighten it out when you stitch it on. I also have a set of nails which look kind of like the back spines. I think these are the front nails and these are the back nails. They're a bit more spaced out because the back foot is bigger. I also have 2 little horns, which are teeny tiny little cones. In the sketch, there's like a bit of skin that the horns kind of protrude out of, so I was thinking I might do a band of crochet, like kind of like a sleeve that I scooch this into and then sew onto his head. I was thinking about it. I think I probably won't, just because it would be so tiny. It would be like literally 1 row of single crochets. So it'd be like something really little, and these are already really small, so I don't want to kind of cover them up anymore. And I also have his little nose horn, which has a bit of a curve in it, mostly because of how I pulled the ending tail on. I like pulled it through, so it's kind of being pulled up. I'm not sure how much that shape really reads or how much it'll keep, but I attempted to make it have a tiny bit of a curve on it as well. So I'm going to now attach all these pieces. That'll probably take me a little bit, and then after that we can decorate this guy with little bumps and maybe his little smile and stuff like that. Okay, so it took me a little over 2 hours, but I've attached everything together. I think he looks pretty cute. I also sewed his wings down here at the darker part as well, because I figured it'd help him stay up, and I was right. I think he looks pretty good. Honestly, I thought his legs were really chunky before, but now I think they're fine. The one thing is he doesn't look happy necessarily, because this belly went down, so I added some little cheeks. One kind of, I don't know if you can see this, one kind of sticks out a little bit and the other's more flush because I pressed one down more when I sewed it on, but I think it's fine. I think he's cute. So now I'm going to embroider the little details on him, and we can do that part together. The first thing I'm going to try to do is a little happy face with some black yarn, because I want to put a little tooth on him, so I figure he'll need a little mouth for the tooth to come out of. So I'm going to basically go from this cheek to this cheek, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, I think he looks pretty happy on this side. He could look a bit happier on this side though. So I'm going to change this one a little. It's really hard to make 2 sides of something like a smile look even on a crochet, because since it's worked in a spiral, each side is a bit different. Okay, now I think this side looks really happy, and this side looks a bit worse than the other one. So I'm going to try to fix up this other side, and then that's kind of just how that's kind of how embroidery on a crochet works, because you're not going to be able to get them exactly even since everything's worked in a spiral. Okay, so now he has a smile on both sides. Looking at him head on, he looks a bit wonky no matter what, just because, like I was saying, it's worked in a spiral, so it's hard to keep things symmetrical. But I think it looks pretty good, which I'll take, because embroidering faces and stuff on amigurumi is not my favorite thing to do. I usually like to leave them like mouthless and mostly detailless when it comes to embroidery, because I think the minimalistic look is nice, and I don't want to risk doing something that won't look good. Now that he has his little face, I'm going to try to give him a little tooth. I'm not sure if I'm going to give him 2. I think 1 might be cute. I'm going to do it in this yellow again, just for consistency's sake. I wasn't sure I was going to do black. I thought I might do the darker green for his mouth, but I thought black would be fine since he has black eyes. But I don't want to introduce white just for a tooth, and I think this yellow makes sense, honestly. So I'm going to use this, and I might end up going with a paler yellow, like more of a beige or tan, but I'm going to try it with this first. Okay, I've decided that I don't want to do a yellow tooth because it blends in too much with his belly. The color I want is part of my yarn pile, so I'm hoping everything doesn't fall. Here's his little tooth. I think that's very cute. I think I'm just gonna give him one. I think the asymmetry of it is even cuter. It makes him seem even more like a little baby. So I know the original drawing, he has little yellow horns on the tips of his wings. I don't think I'm going to be doing that. I don't know how I'd get a triangle that small. Like, I have an idea, but I don't know if it's worth doing. Like, I've done everything else to try to keep this as accurate to the drawing as possible. And now the last thing I'm going to add is a bunch of little dots with this darker green color. So it's a bit hard to tell because this image isn't colored in, if the dot on his cheek is supposed to be like a shine or if it's supposed to be an actual spot like this. I'm going to go with it's a shine. I have the image pulled up next to me, which is what I'm looking at. I'm gonna go ahead and say it's a shine because that one's really circular where the other ones seem like little triangles. Apologies if you guys wanted an in-depth tutorial on how to make this dragon. I've never made a tutorial video like that and I don't really know how I'd film it. My tripod isn't angled down. But the pattern that I've been coming up with as I go is going to be in the description of this video if you are interested in recreating it. I don't think anything about it is particularly hard to redo. It has taken me a while because I've been coming up with it as I've been going. So if you guys are interested in the pattern, it will be in the description below. While I'm embroidering these spots on, I just wanted to take the time to thank you guys for being so supportive in the comments and being so nice to me and giving me little tips on how to crochet, because I am entirely self-taught. I taught myself how to crochet back in like September of 2020. So there's a lot that I don't know. So thank you guys for all your little pointers in the comments and for being so supportive. It's just really nice to see. You guys are super sweet. When I started this channel, I wasn't really expecting people to watch it. I just kind of wanted to give me an excuse, more or less, to crochet. And I was like, well, if I'm making a video every week, then I'll have a reason to do it. So thank you guys for being so nice in the comments. So I took some time and embroidered several little spots on my little dragon guy. And here he is. He only has a few on this side because I ran out of thread, and I was like, you know what, that's probably a good sign. And he has a few more on this side, but I think he looks really cute. For someone who doesn't make patterns or anything, I think he looks pretty good. So now I'll put up a side-by-side of my little crochet guy and the picture that I referenced. What do you think? How'd I do? In the description below, I'll have links to the Drawfee channel and to the specific video where I got the idea for this little guy from. They're a much larger channel, but I'll just put them in the description anyway since I did get my inspiration from them, so I want to give them the little bit of credit that I can. But yeah, this is my dragon. The pattern's in the description if you want to follow it. It's, like I said, I don't think it's a very complicated pattern. The only difficult part might be attaching the legs and possibly putting these little things between the wings. They're not very hard, it's just tedious and a bit annoying. Another thing to keep in mind is the belly is pretty much exactly in reference to my own one. I don't have guides in the pattern for where to put your arms, legs, or any pieces of it actually. You can kind of just put them wherever you feel like they should go, because that's what I did. Yours probably won't look exactly like mine, but it'll have the essence of my little guy. Basically the thing I'm saying is the belly might not fit your arms and legs, unless of course you make the belly first and attach it, and then you add the arms and legs afterward to make sure it's contouring the arms and legs as you want it to, which I think would be better than how I did it, but I kind of had to work backwards. But I am actually really happy with the way this guy's turned out. When I was making it, you might have noticed in the clips, but I was kind of leery of how large his legs were and didn't think he would particularly look like a dragon, but he does. He really does. Maybe it's the smile or the horns, something really brought it all together. Even when the wings were still on, I was like, this kind of looks like an elephant because they were flapping down minus face. But I'm pretty happy with the way this guy turned out. If you guys make your own, definitely let me know how they turn out in the comments. I don't really expect you to make your own, but in case you do, the pattern is down there for you to use. It yields a very cute dragon, at least in my opinion. So yeah, that's gonna be it for this week. Let me know in the comments what you think of my little dragon. If I do this again, maybe I'll document more of the pattern making process if you think that would be interesting. But yeah, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next week for more crochet and DIY based content.